Hi, I'm Stephen Tryon. I founded accountabilitycitizenship.org to build and sustain a community of positive, informed, and engaged citizens. Recently, in light of all the bad information about the FY 2026 federal budget, the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, I have begun a series of videos addressing the many controversies surrounding this budget. The bottom line of this video, which is the fourth in the series, is that the FY 2026 budget that was passed by Congress and signed into law by the president is both morally and fiscally irresponsible, and it will explode the federal debt by over $5 trillion over the budget baseline period. I state with the strongest conviction that every single member of Congress who voted for this budget deserves to lose their seat in the next election. That's where you come in. Pay attention. By all means, check my facts, and then vote these cowards out of office in the November 2026 midterm elections. Imagine you had a joint bank account with a business partner. Imagine that you had been in business together for 50 years, with each of you handling certain functions and responsibilities that you had agreed on in the very beginning. Each of you deposits the proceeds from your part of the business into your joint account at the end of each month. And one of your responsibilities is to report to your partner the balance of the account on, let's say, the 10th of every month, the day the bank has published its monthly statements for the last 50 years. Now, suppose one month your friend Donald comes along and asks you to give him the proceeds from your part of the business instead of putting it into the joint account like you're supposed to. Now, Donald is very popular in your circle of friends, and you really want Donald to like you. And truth be told, you're just a little bit afraid of Donald. So you give him the money, even though you know you're not supposed to. But when the 10th of the month rolls around, the bank balance looks terrible because you didn't deposit the money like you were supposed to. So instead of reporting the balance the way you always have for the past 50 years, you decide you're going to pick a different date, a date when the balance looks more normal. And you're going to report the account balance on that date so you don't have to explain the missing money. After all, your friend Donald says he's making big deals and he will pay you back, and you can put the money back in the account and everything's going to be just fine. Now, I think we all realize that giving Donald the money we were supposed to put into the business account is criminal, is wrong. And I think we all know that changing the date we use to report the account balance to our partner is a lie. It's an intentional deception to keep your partner from seeing the true state of the business's finances, from seeing that you have put the business at great risk by being criminally irresponsible with business resources. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly what congressional Republicans have done by passing the FY 2026 budget. Let me explain. 51 years ago, Congress passed the Congressional Budget Reform Act of 1974. I talked a bit about the Congressional Budget Reform Act of 1974 in my last video. It's now referred to as Public Law 93-344. Public Law 93-344 establishes the Congressional Budget Office and defines the process whereby Congress creates a budget and creates its projections for revenue and spending, which are known as baselines. I spoke a little bit about baselines in my first book. On page 44, you can find a discussion of baselines in Accountability Citizenship. The law requires the Congressional Budget Office to use something called an existing law baseline as the standard against which budget proposals are measured. And that has been the standard for 50 years. Section 313 of Public Law 93-344 has prevented Congress from adding anything to a budget that increases deficits outside of the 10-year existing law baseline period used by the Congressional Budget Office. To comply with Section 313 of Public Law 93-344, which is the second bullet point on this whiteboard, certain tax cuts enacted with the fiscal year 2017 budget had to sunset or end in fiscal year 2026. Ending those tax cuts added $3.5 trillion in revenue over the baseline period, revenue that has been put in every budget baseline since 2017. The FY 2026 budget extends the FY 2017 tax cuts, removing that $3.5 trillion in revenue over the baseline period. In order to avoid having to count this $3.5 trillion cost as part of the cost of the FY 2026 budget, Republican members of Congress invented a made-up baseline that is completely inconsistent with the existing law baseline standard that has been used to measure and report on the budget for 50 years. The purpose of the Republicans' made-up baseline was to deceive the American people about the true cost of the FY 2026 budget. The FY 2026 budget adds $3.5 trillion in deficits to the federal budget over the 10-year baseline period. After accounting for the increased interest spend associated with these deficits, the FY 2026 budget adds over $5 trillion to the national debt over the baseline period. Given that the true Congressional Budget Office baseline before the FY 2026 budget showed the federal debt increasing from 123% of GDP to 134% of GDP over the baseline period, it is morally and fiscally irresponsible and criminally incompetent to include $3.5 trillion in tax cuts in the FY 2026 budget, and then to lie to the American people about the true effect of the FY 2026 budget on the national debt. Every single member of Congress who voted for this budget voted to deceive the American people about its true fiscal effects. Every single member of Congress who voted for this budget deserves to lose their seat in the November 2026 midterm elections. Let them know that you know what they did, and let them know that you're going to hold them accountable. Show up at their town halls like the people of Southeast Wisconsin did this last week at Congressman Brian Stiles' town halls. Tell them you know what they did, and tell them that you're going to hold them accountable for being dishonest with the American people and with the American taxpayers' dollars. I'm Stephen Tryon, and I founded accountabilitycitizenship.org to build and sustain a community of positive, informed, and engaged citizens. It's more critical than ever before that you educate yourself on what this government and what this administration is doing. Our republic depends on your participation. We all have a job to do as American citizens, to be educated, informed, and to vote responsibly. Do your job. Thanks very much for watching.